Here's the punchline they choke on. They didn't create your power, but they're the ones who woke it up. My dear chosen ones, let's call this what it really is. Someone with serious power just clocked you, and now they can't look away. In simple terms, a heavy hitter has their eye on you, and instead of moving on, they're zooming in. Not because you're wrong, because you're rare. This isn't a casual glance. This is a full-scale investigation, and that says more about them than it ever will about you. You've probably felt it, haven't you? That shift in the air when you enter a room. The way certain people straighten up, the way their tone changes, the way conversations glitch for half a second, like you just walked across their mental wires. You're asking yourself, why me? I'm not doing anything. I'm just existing. Why does my existence feel like a threat to them? My dear chosen one, that is the answer. You're not begging. You're not performing. You're not shrinking. You're just being. And for a fragile ego, that's a full-blown earthquake. Let's put it in an idiomatic way. You've become the one they can't quite put their finger on, but can't get out of their head either. That's you now, the walking question mark that their mind keeps revisiting. They noticed two things about you that shook them. First, you don't fold when pressure shows up, and second, you don't chase what doesn't respect you. That combination is lethal to anyone who survives off control. They're used to people bending, breaking, explaining. You do none of that. You stand, you observe, you move on. That's why they're rattled. Think about how they move around you now. The ones who used to talk over you suddenly choose their words like they're under oath. The ones who once dismissed you now replay your sentences after you leave. That cold silence, that strange tension, it's not your imagination. It's the sound of them realizing they misread you completely. Once upon a time they thought you were easy to manage, soft, predictable. Now they see you were just quiet because you were studying, you were just distant because you were healing, you weren't losing, you were loading. My dear chosen ones, this is where you flip how you see this. Their investigation isn't an insult. It's proof. People don't study what doesn't matter. No one rewinds footage of a forgettable moment. They only obsess over what unsettles them, what exposes them, what reminds them of everything they're not. You are that reminder. You are the how did they survive that and still walk like this in their mind. You are the living evidence that staying true to yourself is more powerful than playing their games. And I know there's another question nagging at you. Did I do something wrong? Did I change too much? Am I the problem? Let me be very clear. You didn't do something wrong. You finally did something different. You stopped apologizing for existing. You stopped explaining your boundaries. You stopped giving unlimited access to people who would have happily watched you burn. You grew out of their control, and instead of admitting they were wrong about you, they put you under a microscope. That's not your guilt. That's their damage. Use this as fuel. Every stare, every whisper, every quiet room you walk into, take it as confirmation. You're not invisible anymore. You're undeniable. You turned from background character to main event without raising your voice, and that eats them alive. They're not just watching to judge you. They're watching to learn your formula, to understand why you didn't break where they would have shattered. How did this person come through all that and still move like they've already won? That question keeps them up. My dear chosen ones, if you're still here listening, that already proves it. You're not running from your own reflection. You want the full truth. So do something with this energy. Use their discomfort as your confirmation. Use their investigation as your motivation. Let it remind you that you've reached a level where your existence demands attention, even from people who wish it didn't. And before we dive deeper into why they've locked in on you, do one thing for yourself and this mission. Hit like, subscribe, and drop 777 in the comments so the watchers know you see them right back. You're not paranoid, you're powerful, and the fact that they can't look away is the loudest proof you'll ever get. Number 1. The aura that turns every room into a truth scanner. The room freezes when you walk in, and they hate that it's you who holds the temperature. Nothing scares an insecure enemy more than a chosen one who doesn't flinch, doesn't fold, and doesn't explain. My dear chosen ones, let's talk about the moment everything shifted, because you felt it, didn't you? That instant when the room didn't just go quiet, it tightened. Like someone pressed pause on reality just to watch how you move. And before you even open your mouth, before you take your seat, before you lift a single eyebrow, they're already thrown off. Why? Because your presence exposes their performance. Your authenticity shakes their illusions. Your mere existence threatens the stories they built to feel superior. This is the part they'll never admit, so allow me to say it for them. You don't enter a room, you redefine it. You've probably asked yourself, why do they stare? Why do they study me like I'm a puzzle missing half its pieces? My dear chosen one, it's because you break their mental scripts. You don't follow the emotional choreography they rehearsed for you. They expect a reaction. You give them calm. They expect insecurity. You give them certainty. They expect submission. You give them silence sharper than confrontation. And nothing rattles a pretender faster than someone who moves with genuine power they didn't give you. This is why someone with serious power has now noticed you and can't look away. You're unpredictable in the most controlled way possible. You walk in with that steady, unbothered rhythm that says, I know more than I reveal, and I see more than I speak. And to anyone who thrives on manipulation, that is a living nightmare. They can't read you. They can't box you in. They can't bait you into showing your cards. So what do? They watch. They investigate. They observe every silence, every look, every decision. They're trying to figure out how you manage to stay centered while they scramble for control. They're trying to decode how you carry presence without performing. They're trying to understand how your stillness hits harder than their loudest efforts. You're not the glitch in their simulation, chosen one. You're the reminder that their simulation is fragile. You've noticed the signs, too, the fumbling of their words, the sudden shift in their tone, the way they straighten up when you walk past them. They pretend it's coincidence, but energy never lies. You've felt the atmosphere tighten around you like the oxygen itself is aware of your arrival. That isn't delusion, that's presence. And presence is something people can't fake, copy, or control. You've also wondered, why does my silence bother them so much? Because silence is where your power peaks. You don't overshare. You don't justify. You don't fill the air to ease their discomfort. You let your energy speak, and it speaks volumes. My dear chosen ones, people who rely on manipulation need noise, chaos, and reaction to survive. But you thrive in calm. Your peace is unsettling. Your composure is suspicious. Your boundaries feel like walls they can't climb. They think you're hiding something. But the truth is even harder for them to accept. You're hiding nothing. You're simply everything they can't decode. This is why they keep watching. This is why they keep whispering. This is why they feel exposed in your presence. You're not confusing. They're just not used to meeting someone who didn't crumble where they would have shattered. You're not mysterious by strategy. You're mysterious by evolution. Life carved you into this shape. Experience sharpened you into this awareness. Silence trained you into this restraint. And every time you rise without warning, someone out there panics. Every time you glow without permission, someone out there spirals. Every time you choose yourself, someone out there breaks. Remember this, chosen one. They're not investigating you because you're unclear. They're investigating you because you're unforgettable, and that is exactly why they can't look away. Number 2. The judgment they fear you'll prove wrong. When being wrong about you becomes their personal horror story. My dear chosen ones, here's the twist that slices straight through every fragile ego watching you from the shadows. Nothing terrifies them more than realizing they misjudged you. Not misunderstood, not underestimated, misjudged. They built an entire narrative in their heads about who you were, how you'd behave, how far you'd go, and then you shattered every assumption without even trying. That's the nightmare they wake up to. Not your presence, not your growth, but the fact that their sense of accuracy collapses every time you reveal a new layer they never accounted for. You see, fragile minds rely on categories. They need people to fit neatly into boxes because boxes make the world feel safe, predictable, manageable. But you, my dear chosen one, are not a box. You're a shifting horizon, a moving target, a different chapter every time they think they've finished your story. They labeled you quiet, then you came back stronger than anyone predicted. They labeled you harmless, then your resilience revealed a depth they couldn't match. They labeled you simple, then your silence exposed their lies with more precision than their loudest arguments. You unwrite their assumptions simply by existing. And here's what really devastates them. Your evolution makes them question themselves. If they were wrong about you, who else were they wrong about? What other truths have they avoided? What other lies have they told themselves just to stay comfortable? You are the living glitch in their system, the contradiction that proves their judgment isn't the sharp weapon they thought it was. You make them feel foolish, and nothing wounds a swollen ego more deeply. My dear chosen ones, you've probably wondered, why do they fixate on me? Why do they study me? Why do they react so strangely every time I do something normal? Because you don't do anything normally in their eyes. You don't move like their expectations. You don't respond the way they rehearsed in their heads. You don't fall into their emotional traps or play out the roles they cast you in. Every time they think they've predicted your next step, you take a path they didn't even see on the map. That forces their mind into confrontation with reality, with uncertainty, with their own limitations. People don't fear what they don't understand. They fear what proves they don't understand. And chosen one, that's you. You're too calm to categorize, too stable to manipulate, too layered to decode. You move with a subtle power that tells them you know something they don't, and that alone rattles them more than shouting ever could. This is why they investigate you. Not out of curiosity, but out of desperation. They need you to make sense so their worldview can survive. They need you to fit a narrative so their pride stays intact. But you keep breaking the frame. You keep evolving beyond their grasp. You keep proving their theories weak and their instincts unreliable. And the funniest part? You're not doing any of this on purpose. You're just living, just growing, just being yourself. Meanwhile, they're rewriting mental case files, trying to keep up with a version of you that refuses to stay still. Chosen one, understand this. You were never meant to validate their assumptions. You were meant to expose them. You were never meant to fit their understanding. You were meant to break it. And that is why they can't stop circling you, why they watch, why they dig, why they obsess. Because every moment you exist, you force them to confront the one truth they fear most. They were wrong about you, and they are not sure what else they're wrong about. Number 3. The backstory they can't map, mimic, or make sense of. The backstory they can't box in, break down, or make sense of. My dear chosen ones, nothing rattles an enemy harder than realizing you rose from places they wouldn't survive 5 minutes in. This is where their investigation gets messy, because the moment someone with serious power starts digging into your past, they expect to find a blueprint. Something predictable, something linear, something they can point at and say, that's why they became who they are. But when they trace your steps, the trail doesn't just blur, it disappears. Your origins don't follow the neat little storyline they worship. You break every rule their worldview depends on. You didn't come from shiny opportunities. You didn't grow under perfect conditions. Your story wasn't a staircase, it was a battlefield. Yet somehow here you are, unshaken, unstoppable, unreadable. And that is exactly why they can't look away. My dear chosen ones, they want your life to fit into their script. Good background, good guidance, good breaks, and a predictable rise. That's the formula they cling to because it keeps their ego safe. But you didn't rise with their formula. You rose without one. You created meaning from chaos, strength from pressure, clarity from trauma, and presence from silence. And that alone terrifies anyone who needs the world to make sense in order to feel secure. They study your past like archaeologists digging through ruins, hoping to find the missing ingredient that explains why you turned into a force instead of a failure. Yet everything they uncover only confuses them more. They try to match your confidence with your childhood, and the math doesn't add up. They try to match your resilience with the storms you survived, and the math breaks. They try to match your calm authority with the lack of support you had, and suddenly nothing is logical anymore. Because chosen one, your rise isn't logical, it's revolutionary. And that shakes them at their core. Every time they think they've figured you out, something contradicts their theory. How did someone who lacked resources move like they were sculpted from abundance? How did someone who had every reason to quit become someone impossible to discourage? How did someone who walked through more darkness than they could imagine still carry a light strong enough to expose others? They don't have answers, and that lack of control makes them spiral. This is why they keep turning your history over like a file that refuses to stay closed. They're not admiring you, they're scrambling. Because if your success came without a perfect foundation, then their excuses fall apart. If your rise wasn't handed to you, then their stagnation has no justification. If you came from nowhere and built yourself anyway, then their comfort becomes their weakness, and you become the living contradiction they wish they never discovered. My dear chosen ones, you weren't created by systems. You were shaped by storms. You were not assembled in safety. You were forged in places they're too fragile to even discuss. Your lessons didn't come from books. They came from surviving what others couldn't comprehend. Your strength wasn't handed down. It was hammered into you by pressure. And your intuition isn't guesswork. It was carved by experience. That's why your origins feel untouchable, untraceable, unexplainable, because they expect growth to be tidy, but yours was raw. They expect development to be visible, but yours was hidden. They expect greatness to be inherited, but yours was earned in silence. So when they ask, how did this person become that? The answer never fits their logic, because you're not the product of privilege. You're the proof that fire creates what comfort never will, and that is exactly why they keep watching, and why they can't stop trying to solve the mystery of you. Number 4. The obsession that's really envy wearing a mask. Their obsession isn't admiration, it's envy wearing a mask and pretending not to stare. Envy doesn't shout your name. It studies it in silence, hoping no one notices the trembling hands behind the clipboard. My dear chosen ones, let's rip the curtain clean off this one. The people who can't stop watching you aren't doing it out of curiosity anymore. That phase is long gone. What you're dealing with now is something far more twisted, far more revealing, and far more flattering than they'd ever dare to admit. Their investigation stopped being about control the moment they realized they couldn't influence you, shape you, or shrink you. Now, they're watching you because they want pieces of you they'll never be able to recreate. They don't stalk what they don't value. They don't study what doesn't threaten their comfort. They don't analyze what doesn't stir something restless inside of them. And you, my dear chosen one, you stir everything. You're the contradiction they can't solve and the reminder they can't escape. They don't know whether they fear you or worship you, so they settle for a pathetic little mixture of both. They'd never say it out loud, but deep down, observing you feels like watching someone doing life the way they wish they had the courage to. Imagine this. They claim you intimidate them, yet their eyes keep finding you even in crowded rooms. They swear you're not that special, yet they replay your tone, your expressions, your choices like secret recordings. They insist you don't matter, yet every time you shift, grow or rise, something inside them shakes like it heard bad news. If that isn't envy disguised as fascination, what else could it be? They don't want to expose you, chosen one. They want to absorb you. They want to inhale your calm, borrow your confidence, mimic your presence. But the truth that torments them is simple. What you have can't be copied. They can trace your footsteps, but they can't walk with your spine. They can repeat your words, but they can't deliver them with your conviction. They can shadow your movements, but they can't steal the storms you survive to earn your poise. You stay steady while the world around you wobbles. You move with confidence that doesn't need noise to be acknowledged. You walk with a quiet that burns louder than their shouting, and that drives them insane because most people crumble under pressure while you turn pressure into clarity, into strategy, into momentum. You make survival look elegant. You make growth look effortless. You make evolution look natural. Their investigation becomes their ritual. They watch the way you pause before responding, hoping to decode your thinking. They study your silence like scripture, hoping to understand how you stay so composed. They track your evolution like a storyline unfolding too quickly for them to keep up. They don't want to defeat you. They want access to whatever blueprint forged someone like you. And here's the truth they'll never speak. You remind them of everything they could have been, but chose not to become. Your strength exposes their excuses. Your self-control exposes their impulsiveness. Your growth exposes their stagnation. Your presence exposes the corners of themselves they avoid. That's why they keep circling you like moths around a flame they know will burn them. Imagine them denying they look up to you while repeating your phrases without noticing. Imagine them pretending not to study you while mirroring your habits, your values, your pace. Imagine them swearing you don't matter while checking your updates like their emotions depend on it. They won't bow, they won't confess, they won't speak the truth, but their actions scream louder than their pride will allow. My dear chosen ones, understand this. Their obsession is a distorted form of admiration, a silent, ego-bruising worship. They see in you the greatness they were too scared to chase. They see in you the courage they couldn't access. They see in you the version of themselves they abandoned along the way. That is why they can't look away. That is why they keep returning. That is why someone powerful has you under observation. Not because you're ordinary, but because you're everything they wish they were brave enough to become. Number 5. The pattern breaker who shatters their predictable world. The curveball they never trained for, the one who breaks their script and their nerves. My dear chosen ones, here's the part that hits them right in the ego. You're the character they can't control in a story they thought they were writing. And nothing terrifies predictable people more than someone who refuses to follow the script they rehearsed for you. They move through life on rails, repeating patterns, recycling emotions, clinging to routines like safety blankets. But you walk in like someone who owns the entire map, the off-road paths, the shortcuts, and the secret routes they don't even know exist. And that alone makes their nerves snap. Predictable people depend on predictability to feel powerful. They rely on your reactions, your guilt, your explanations, your vulnerability to keep the illusion going that they understand you. But chosen one, you shattered that illusion the moment you stopped dancing to their cues. You became the glitch in their perfectly crafted system, the curveball they couldn't dodge, the anomaly that exposed how fragile their sense of control truly is. They expect you to explode when they push you. Instead, you stay calm, calm in a way that rattles their entire psyche. They expect guilt, but you give them a quiet indifference that stings harder than confrontation. They expect you to chase clarity, but you choose distance, leaving them confused about how little power they actually had. And that's why they're investigating you now. They're trying to figure out how someone they thought they understood slipped right out of their emotional grip. Picture this. Chosen one. Someone tries to trigger you, and instead of reacting, you let out a small laugh. Not because the situation is funny, but because their attempt is painfully weak. Someone tries to manipulate your emotions, expecting you to crumble, and you simply tilt your head with that, "You really thought that would work?" look. Someone throws shade, hoping you'll take the bait, but you walk right past it like it never existed. It's not arrogance, it's mastery. The mastery they'll never reach because they've never lived outside their own predictable patterns. See, chosen one, your unpredictability isn't chaos, it's precision. You don't think in straight lines like they do. You think in spirals, layers, strategies they can't comprehend. Straight-line thinkers crumble when they meet someone who can turn corners they didn't even see coming. You're the kind of person who refuses to be boxed in because you've outgrown boxes long ago. And here's what truly breaks their nerves. You are free in ways they've never imagined being. Freedom scares people who are tied to routines, titles, approval, and predictable outcomes. Your refusal to behave like a puppet threatens their entire understanding of how relationships and power are supposed to work. You don't break rules just to break them. You move in ways that make rules irrelevant. They hate that, chosen one, because you force them to question everything they were taught about control. You show them that real power isn't loud or dramatic. Real power is quiet. Real power is unreadable. Real power responds instead of reacts. And that's why you feel dangerous to them. Because no matter how much they analyze, dissect, or study you, they can't get ahead of someone who lives 3 steps beyond their logic. Unpredictable, unshakable, and absolutely unforgettable. That's why they can't stop watching you. That's why they're investigating you. You are the lesson they were never prepared to learn. Number 6, the living mirror that forces their shadows to speak. The mirror that makes their demons scream. My dear chosen ones, here's the truth they refuse to whisper out loud. They were never afraid of you. They were afraid of the parts of themselves that wake up the second you walk in. You don't just enter a room, you activate something inside people that they've spent years, sometimes decades, trying to bury. You stir the emotions they avoided, the dreams they abandoned, the courage they suppressed. You aren't intimidating because you're loud. You're intimidating because you're aligned, and alignment is a language most people never learn to speak. You're honest in a world that thrives on pretending. You're raw in a world that worships filters. You're grounded in a world that's addicted to external validation. And when someone who's been lying to themselves for years meets someone like you, someone built from truth, pain, growth, and resilience, it hits them like a punch straight through their identity. It cracks their mask in places they can't cover up with confidence or charm. Imagine someone who has lived their entire life performing confidence, until you walk in with the kind of strength that was earned, not faked. That kind of presence exposes everything they've been hiding. Imagine someone stuck in a soul-numbing routine, moving through life on autopilot, and then seeing you move with purpose like it's oxygen. Your very existence forces them to confront their own stagnation. Now, imagine someone who has worn so many masks for so long, they no longer remember who they really are. Then your authenticity enters the space, a spotlight they never asked for but can't escape. You don't trigger their insecurities, you reveal them. My dear chosen one, you remind people of who they could have been. Not the version they present to the world, but the version they abandoned, the brave version, the curious version, the creative version, the unapologetic version. And rather than face that truth, they project their discomfort onto you. They label you the problem because blaming you is easier than confronting themselves. This is why they investigate you. Not because your mystery is suspicious, but because your presence is a mirror. They're hoping if they dig deep enough, scroll far enough, question long enough, they'll find a crack that makes them feel better about the ones they're hiding. If they can find a flaw in you, they won't have to face the flaw in themselves. But every time they dig, they only expose their own shadows: bitterness, envy, insecurity, fear. Every attempt to dissect you becomes a confession about them. You didn't hurt them, you awakened them. You shook loose the parts of them that were asleep. You triggered their neglected dreams, their suppressed desires, their unprocessed emotions. That internal earthquake they feel every time you're near, that's not your fault. That's their truth trying to break through. Remember this, chosen one, people don't obsess over people who mean nothing. They don't analyze what doesn't affect them. They don't investigate what doesn't impact their inner world. You disrupt the illusions they built to feel comfortable. You show them their shadows in 4K resolution. Even when they pretend to hate you, they can't stop watching because you represent the truth they've avoided. Think about it. Someone belittles you, then can't stop replaying the moment. Someone acts superior, then lies awake wondering why your silence unsettled them. Someone dismisses you, but deep down they know you hit a nerve they didn't know existed. You didn't just walk into their life. You walked into their subconscious, and that's why they keep coming back. You aren't just a person to them. You're a catalyst, a jolt, a mirror, a reminder of everything they've been running from. And once someone sees themselves through you, chosen one, they are never the same again. Number 7. The silence that exposes what their words try to hide. The silence that turns their secrets against them. My dear chosen ones, here's the truth that rattles every insecure soul who crosses your path. Nothing exposes a guilty conscience faster than your silence. Not your anger, not your arguments, not your explanations, your silence. Because silence is the one thing they can't manipulate, can't predict, and can't twist to fit their narrative. You don't withhold words to punish them. You withhold words because you don't need them. And that is exactly why someone out there with power is investigating you. You've become the quiet storm that reveals everything without saying anything at all. Nothing destroys a liar quicker than a chosen one who stops talking. When you go quiet, my dear chosen ones, it's like pulling the plug on their illusion of control. They're used to tugging at people's emotions like puppet strings. Poke here, get a reaction. Push there, get an explanation. Twist a story. Get someone scrambling to defend themselves. But when they try that with you, they get nothing. No reaction, no panic, no justification. Just the kind of calm that feels like a mirror. And they hate what they see in it. And you've seen it happen. The moment you don't reply, suddenly a whole psychological thriller begins in their mind. Did I say something wrong? Why aren't they answering? Did I lose access to them? What are they thinking? What do they know? Your silence becomes the plot twist they can't control. Not because you're doing anything wrong, because they are terrified of what your quiet might mean. Your silence isn't passive, it's reflective. It forces them to confront everything they've been trying to avoid in themselves. It doesn't expose your weakness, it exposes theirs. People who rely on chaos don't know how to handle peace. People who manipulate reactions don't know how to survive stillness. People who need control don't know how to respond to someone who simply refuses to be controlled. And that, chosen one, is you. This is exactly where the investigation starts. They replay your last conversation like detectives rewinding blurry footage. They analyze your pauses. They dissect your tone. They zoom in on every detail like they're trying to solve a crime. Your silence becomes the mystery they can't crack, and nothing frustrates a manipulator more than a chosen one who won't hand them the cheat code. Imagine it. Someone who once called you too quiet is now losing sleep over everything you didn't say. Someone who pretended they didn't care is now checking your profile, rereading old messages, asking around. Someone who acted confident in public is now spiraling in private because you didn't give them closure, reassurance, or emotional access. They're not confused by your silence, they're exposed by it. And the more they panic, the calmer you become. The quieter you stay, the louder their insecurities echo. They try to provoke you, but all they hear in return is the sound of their own fear bouncing off your composure. That's why your silence feels like judgment to them. That's why your calm feels like truth. That's why you become the presence they cannot escape. You sit in your peace while they unravel. They think you're hiding something, but you're not. Your silence simply revealed what they were hiding from themselves. You don't need to shout to shake the room. You don't need to explain to prove your point. You don't need to respond to expose them. Your silence already did all the work. And that, my dear chosen ones, is why they're investigating you. Because you are the only one who can make them feel seen without saying a single word. Number 8. The unanswered. Why you? That haunts their ego. The question they whisper into their pillow. Why you? Nothing haunts an insecure enemy more than a chosen one who wins without asking for permission. My dear chosen ones, this is the nightmare they can't outrun. The question that keeps chewing at their ego long after you've left the room. Why you? Why does the world shift when you step forward? Why does attention move in your direction without you lifting a finger? That question burns them because it breaks the illusion they built their whole identity on. They spent their entire lives fighting for a spotlight that bends toward you naturally, effortlessly, almost unfairly in their eyes. You don't chase acknowledgement. Acknowledgement finds you. And for someone who survives off validation, that reality is devastating. You're not loud, yet you're unforgettable. You don't perform, yet you're magnetic. You're not trying to be the center, yet the room subtly recalibrates itself around your presence. This alone drives them mad because they were taught to believe that importance must be earned through noise, exaggeration, and constant effort. Meanwhile, you walk in with quiet confidence, and suddenly their years of pretending look like flimsy cardboard next to your authenticity. You don't beg to be seen, you simply are. And that truth bruises them deeper than any insult ever could. Picture this. Someone who spent years crafting a flawless image watches you show up in your natural state, and people are drawn to you anyway. Someone who rehearses every word, observes you speaking from instinct, from truth, from presence, and still you command more respect. Someone who built their entire personality around being noticed suddenly realizes you don't even care if anyone is looking, and that's exactly why everyone looks. That contrast doesn't just irritate them, it shatters their internal ranking system. You've probably wondered why they study you so intensely, why they copy your style, your tone, your moves, even if they pretend they don't. It's because you represent a type of power they've never possessed, the kind that can't be faked, borrowed, or stolen. They want to find your flaw, your weak spot, the secret key that explains your influence. They look for proof that you're overrated, for mistakes they can inflate, for vulnerabilities they can spin into narratives. But the more they search, the more they expose their own insecurity, because every time they expect arrogance, they find calm. Every time they expect chaos, they find control. Every time they predict your fall, you rise in a way that makes them question their understanding of strength. They scroll through your past looking for dirt, but instead they find resilience. They replay your interactions hoping to catch insecurity, but instead they find composure. They wait for you to slip, but instead you level up in ways they can't anticipate. And that leaves them with only one haunting question. Why does this person matter so much? They can't admit the real answer. If they say you earned it, their ego cracks. If they say you're better, their identity collapses. So they stay stuck in denial, in obsession, in analysis. You terrify them because your influence doesn't come from noise, it comes from presence. They worship the spotlight. You make the spotlight follow you. They chase admiration. You command respect without trying. They imitate shadows. You radiate authenticity. This is the torment they can't silence. They can't understand you, but they can't ignore you. They can't hate you fully, but they can't admire you openly. They can't copy you, but they can't look away either. So they spin, spiral, and question themselves while you continue existing, steady, powerful, untouched. That's the why you dilemma. And the answer they refuse to accept is the simplest one of all: because you're chosen. Number 9. The unpredictable future. They can't pin down or prepare for. The future they can't trace, predict, or control. You're the storm they never saw coming. Nothing terrifies your enemies more than a chosen one whose next move is invisible until it hits. My dear chosen ones, this is where their panic becomes undeniable. Because while they cling to life like it's a script they can revise, you move through existence like someone who shredded their script years ago. They want maps, forecasts, step-by-step guarantees. They want everything neat, tidy, predictable, safe. But then you appear, someone who refuses to walk in straight lines, someone whose journey bends logic, someone whose growth doesn't match the timeline they worship. And that alone is enough to send them spiraling. They try to track you, but your evolution is too fluid. They try to predict you, but your instincts move faster than their assumptions. They try to analyze your path, but your future isn't something written, it's something you build in real time. You're not the product of a plan. You're the manifestation of momentum. That terrifies people who only know how to move when someone else gives them directions. People don't fear the unknown as much as they pretend. What they fear is the chosen one who walks straight into the unknown without flinching. You move like someone who has already survived storms they can't imagine. You choose growth over comfort, truth over illusion, and elevation over validation. That alone exposes them, because your courage shows them their own limits. Your flexibility reveals their rigidity. Your future, uncontained, unpredictable, unruled, forces them to confront the fact that they've spent their entire lives begging for permission while you build futures without asking. Imagine them trying to decode your trajectory and only hearing static. Imagine them trying to predict your next chapter and getting lost because you don't repeat patterns. Imagine them trying to copy your mindset and glitching like a broken simulation because your blueprint isn't stored where they're looking. You're not a formula, you're a phenomenon. Chosen one, your existence stretches the boundaries of what people think is possible. You break cycles they didn't even know existed. You walk paths that didn't exist until you stepped forward. You reshape rooms, dynamics, and expectations simply by choosing yourself. You move like someone writing history without waiting for applause, and that's why they investigate you. Not because they want to understand you, but because they want to contain you. They want to believe you're normal, linear, manageable. But everything about you refuses to shrink. You're not here to maintain their comfort. You're here to challenge it. You're not here to fit into their systems. You're here to expose the cracks in them. They study you hoping to find your limits, but all they ever uncover are shadows, echoes of potential, hints of greatness, never the core. Because your true power lives in places they'll never access: your resilience, your instinct, your lived experience, your unbreakable vision. Chosen one, let them investigate, let them watch, let them guess. Their confusion is proof you're evolving beyond their reach. Their obsession is proof you're moving in realms they can't step into. And when history remembers you, it won't be for following rules. It will be for breaking them so cleanly the world had to adjust around you. Keep walking your unwritten path. You were never meant to follow destiny. You were meant to redefine it. Number 10. The final twist, you were decoding them all along. My dear chosen ones, here's the twist that flips the entire investigation on its head. The whole time they thought they were analyzing you, studying your movements, digging into your silence, they never realized you were the one decoding them. Quietly, effortlessly, without breaking a sweat. That's the part that burns them the deepest. They believed they held the upper hand, that you were the mystery and they were the detective. But chosen one, you were never the subject. You were the observer, the analyst, the one who already knew exactly who you were dealing with. And here's the enemy-shattering truth. They only noticed you because you noticed them first. This is what they can't swallow. You read people in ways they can't explain. You pick up on emotional shifts they don't even know they're giving off. You catch micro-expressions, inconsistencies, hidden intentions, things they assume no one sees. And while they were busy circling you, whispering about your mystery, trying to understand why they feel exposed around you, you were already 2 steps ahead, dissecting their patterns like a seasoned strategist. You've probably asked yourself, why do I always sense when someone is lying? Why do I know what people want before they say it? Why do I feel the shift before it happens? Because, chosen one, your intuition has been trained through fire. You weren't shaped by comfort, you were sharpened by experience. And those experiences gifted you a level of perception that makes even the boldest pretender nervous. This is why someone with serious power is analyzing you now. They don't understand how you can read them without them saying a word. They don't understand how your eyes manage to walk straight into the truth they try so hard to hide. They don't understand how you remain unbothered by the games that usually work on everyone else. And the part that shakes them the hardest? You don't use your insight to manipulate. You use it to move with clarity. Imagine how threatening that is to someone who relies on confusion to feel in control. While they tried to track your motives, you were mapping theirs. While they replayed your silence, you were decoding their insecurities. While they doubted your intentions, you were watching their actions reveal the truth. That's the twist. They weren't studying you, chosen one. They were exposing themselves. People forget that the quietest person in the room is usually the one who already sees everything, and you, with your calm presence and controlled reactions, make them feel like their masks are made of glass. They sense you catching things they hoped were invisible. They sense you reading things they didn't want anyone to notice. It's not paranoia, it's instinct. And your instinct has never been wrong. This is why you're the most mysterious existence they've ever seen, not because you hide, but because you know. You know what sits beneath people's words. You know when respect is fake. You know when someone's curiosity is really envy in disguise, and you know when someone is investigating you, not because you're suspicious, but because you trigger something in them they don't want to face. Here's the final twist, chosen one. They weren't decoding you. They were revealing themselves to you. And the more they try to figure you out, the more obvious their intentions become. You are not the mystery in this story. You are the mirror, the one who sees through, not the one being seen through, the one who observes without being exposed, the one who walks away knowing more than you ever said aloud. In the end, they didn't discover who you are. They discovered who they are, because you decoded them long before they ever thought to investigate you. And now, chosen one, as everything comes full circle, you can finally see the truth for what it is. You were never the one in the shadows. You were the one casting them. Their investigation didn't expose you. It exposed them. And if this message struck a nerve, if it felt like someone finally put your unspoken experiences into words, then lock in with me. Hit that like button, subscribe, drop 77 in the comments to signal your awareness, and share this with another chosen one who needs this truth. Your story isn't ending here. It's only getting louder.